What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Lions video. Now, Dan Campbell and the new coaching staff of this Lions team have a couple of really key points of emphasis when it comes to building up this new culture and rebuilding the Detroit Lions the way they want it to look. Now, the biggest emphasis that they are putting on players right now is competition, being tough, playing hard, and really competing and earning each and every rep and each and every opportunity that you are going to be given as a player. And because of that, because of the new coaching staff, because of the way and the competition aspect that is being emphasized throughout training camps, OTAs, and mini camps, there are, of course, going to be a lot of positional battles, and there are going to be a lot of different battles and competitions to see who gets starting time, to see who gets playing time, and, of course, to see who eventually and inevitably ends up on the final 53. Now, in today's video, we are going to be looking at the top positional battles to keep an eye out for as training camp approaches, as the preseason continues, and as we approach week one. However, before we get into that, before we get into the biggest positional battles on this Detroit Lions franchise and within this Detroit Lions roster, if you are new to the channel and you are enjoying the content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes just 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It's quick, free, and easy, and you'd be helping the channel out more than you could possibly know. So if you could do that, take those 2 seconds to like and subscribe. I'd be greatly appreciative for it. With all that being said, without any further ado, let's get right into the Detroit Lions' biggest positional battles going forward into training camp, preseason, and beyond.
So we get Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, as I mentioned in the intro, very few players on this Lions team have a defined role, and even fewer positions actually have a defined player that are going to 100% be the starter, right? You have the quarterback, Jared Goff, that's pretty much inevitable, right? But other than that, Frank right now is definitely going to be our starting center. Taylor Decker, definitely going to be our starting left tackle. But there's a lot of different positions. Wide receiver is one, even running back is one. You have pretty much anywhere on the defense where nobody is guaranteed a starting role or a starting spot at a given position. So today I wanted to talk about the biggest positional battles. I want to talk about the guys that are competing for these spots, who the favorites are, who the backups might be, who the role players may be, and really talk about all of the competition that we are seeing throughout training camps, OTAs, and mini camps. Now, these positions, these battles are in no particular order. They're not necessarily ranked as far as level of importance or as far as how many people are competing for the spot or anything like that. These are just not in no particular order the biggest positional battles that people need to keep an eye on. Now, the first position that we're going to be talking about today, the first battle that has been taking place over the past couple months, is the safety 2 position. Now, I mentioned that not very many players have a guaranteed starting spot on the Lions roster. One of the players that does not necessarily have a guaranteed role, but is definitely a favorite and is definitely a big-time player that many are expecting to start is Tracy Walker, starting at that high free safety position. However, new defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn has come in with a new system that emphasizes and prioritizes 2 safety sets. So, with that being the case, naturally you are going to need a second safety to play alongside Tracy Walker, and that is going to be a big positional battle to watch as the preseason goes through to see who's playing where, what roles these safeties are actually playing, and of course who is going to take the biggest strides and outperform the rest. As of right now, as it seems from training camps and OTAs, there are 2 really big competitors for this safeties 2 spot in third-year safety and third-year Detroit Lion Will Harris, as well as newly acquired free agent Dean Marlowe. Now, a dark horse candidate for this spot could be Ifedi Melifonwu, a guy that definitely has the skill set and the athleticism to play the safety position. However, so far the Lions are keeping it very simple for him. He's simply playing the cornerback spot with not really a whole lot of rotation, although they have talked numerous times about his versatility, so we could always see that rotation eventually. However, as of right now, as of OTAs and training camps and mini camps, it does seem like the two frontrunners for this safety 2 spot are Will Harris and Dean Marlowe. Now, Dean Marlowe right now, I think, has a little bit of an edge based off what he did a year ago with the Buffalo Bills. Now, last year, Dean Marlowe really got his first significant time to play true defensive snaps and played fairly well for the Buffalo Bills. He only had 22 tackles on the season. However, he did have a sack and a half, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits, 3 passes defended, 2 interceptions, as well as a fumble recovery, and did that while only starting in 5 games and only playing a total of 230 snaps. So Dean Marlowe can definitely take the ball away. Dean Marlowe showed last year that even in a limited amount of snaps, even in a rotational role, and within a defense where he's not the primary or the big name player making all the plays or the guy that's on the field the most, he is still a guy that can get you takeaways. Dean Marlowe is still a guy that can make plays for your defense, and as of last season, Dean Marlowe looked like as though he could take on a larger role and could be a bigger impact player for the Buffalo Bills or for, of course, another NFL team such as the Detroit Lions. Now, Will Harris, as I said, is a third-year safety out of Boston College, drafted by Matt Patricia, drafted by the Quinn Trisha regime, and Will Harris throughout his early years of NFL play has not played very well. He's definitely shown some flashes here and there of being a really solid box safety. He's had a couple really nice sacks, a couple nice QB hits, and actually had a few okay passes defended here and there throughout his career. However, for the vast majority of his playing time under Matt Patricia, he very much underperformed and did not look like anything close to a third-round safety. However, early in training camp, Will Harris has been said to be making a lot of really, not game-changing or game-breaking, but a lot of very solid plays. We saw on the first day of minicamp in goal line drills, Will Harris had a 100-plus yard pick 6. On the third day of camp, Will Harris had a second interception throughout minicamp. He also had several other passes defended and many, many other very good coverage reps throughout the 3 days of minicamp. So although Will Harris has not really played great in actual regular season games, we've seen a lot of flashes from Will Harris. His first or second preseason game a few years ago versus the Houston Texans showed exactly how good Will Harris can be, and we saw the potential that Will Harris can flash as a player when used properly and when, actually put in a position where he is comfortable and a position where his skill set can be utilized correctly. I think Will Harris can take a lot of big steps forward this year, and although I believe Dean Marlowe right now is the front runner for this position, I do not believe Will Harris is that far behind. And by the beginning of preseason and by even training camp, I think you could see Will Harris taking some more snaps at the safety 1, or I guess the safety 2 position. As I said, Ife Melifano is another candidate for this, a dark horse guy, a guy that has all the talent. I think a guy that is more talented and has more potential than those other 2 guys, but I think he is a lesser runner-up, I guess, as he's not really played that safety position before, and the Lions coaching staff doesn't seem very interested in using him in that role as of right now. Now, the second role, the second battle that we are going to be talking about today is not necessarily for a certain spot on the depth chart, more so for starting time as a position as a whole, and that, of course, is the Detroit Lions wide receiver depth. Now, the Detroit Lions do not have a full or a clear number 1 alpha wide receiver like they had in Kenny Galladay a few years ago, or like they had in the great Megatron Johnson. They don't have that guy this year. They don't have that borderline top 10, top 5 wide receiver that's going to go out there week in and week out and just be an absolute game changer and dominate the football game. However, I think the Lions have a couple of really good role players, and they have a bunch of different players that are vying for playing time and starting potential this season. Of course, you have guys like Tyrell Williams, who is going to be your projected wide receiver 1. A 6'4" guy, runs in the 4.4, is very big, very athletic, can definitely make you some plays, and actually I think can kind of fill in and replace the production that we are losing from Marvin Jones. But outside of that, the wide receiver depth chart is pretty murky, right? You have Brashad Perryman who could start, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown who's making a case, you have Quintez Cephas and Victor Bolden who have both been playing very well throughout mini camps. For the backup roles or some of the reserved, or I guess special specific roles, you of course have Jonathan Adams Jr., you have Sage Surratt, you have Javon McKinley, you have Damian Radley, you have Khalif Raymond. All of those guys are vying for spots, and all of those guys have been making plays throughout rookie mini camps and OTAs, and of course the regular mandatory mini camps that happened a week or so so ago. So with that being the case, the Lions do have a lot of different players vying for this spot. Of course, Tyrell Williams right now is the wide receiver 1. It is projected that likely either Brashad Perryman or Quintez Cephas will take on that second boundary wide receiver position. Personally, I think Quintez Cephas is going to be the guy that starts at that boundary position alongside Tyrell Williams. I think his hands are a little better. He's a little bit more consistent with his route running, and I think Brashad Perryman is going to be brought in for specific packages and specific roles, more so as a Marvin Hall replacement or a Marvin Hall replica, more so than a true number 2 wide receiver. And then I do believe that Amon-Ra St. Brown will be starting in the slot. Amon-Ra, the coaches have blushed about his versatility. He's shown off a lot during training camp. Even his first week of rookie minicamp, he made a couple really nice catches, is showing his ability to create separation as well as get yards after the catch. Amon-Ra has been having a very, very good camp. He's been looking very good early in his time in the NFL. I think he will start at that slot wide receiver position with the ability to be more versatile throughout the NFL season as injuries or anything else occurs. As I said, I think Brashad Perryman is going to have more of a Marvin Hall-esque role, and I think Victor Bolden is going to be the primary backup to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been looking very good out of the slot in training camp. He's been looking very good versus the twos. He's been great in one-on-ones. He beat Will Harris a couple times during minicamp. He beat a couple other cornerbacks over and over and over again in 1v1s and has had a really good drill and did very well in 7-on-7s as well. I think he will be the primary backup to Amon-Ra in the slot. And then I think you have some reserve guys, right? You're going to have either Sage Surratt or Jonathan Adams Jr. really competing for that big body, jump ball, red zone kind of a target. You have, of course, Javon McKinley, who I think is just a really good all-around player who could also end up making the roster as that 7th wide receiver. You have guys like Damian Radley, who's hyped up, who's 6'3", runs incredibly fast, is really big, athletic, and strong. You have Khalif Raymond, who right now is the projected starter for our kick and punt return role. He's fit in there somewhere. So there's a lot of competition to go around. There's a lot of different players vying for a lot of different spots and a lot of different playing time. But as of right now, from what I've heard, I would expect Quintez Cephas and Tyrell Williams on the boundaries. I would expect Amon-Ra in the slot, Victor Bolden backing up Amon-Ra with, of course, as I said, Brashad Perryman, Jonathan Adams Jr., Javon McKinley, and probably Khalif Raymond backing up those guys from there. Now, the third battle that I wanted to talk about today, the third and final big positional battle that I wanted to talk about, is a lesser, I guess, emphasized position that's not necessarily a true starting position, but it is a position that, especially in today's day and age in the NFL, is becoming more and more important by the year, and that is the starting slot or nickel cornerback position. Now, as of right now, the camp battle for the nickel DB spot, or the starting nickel DB spot, is between both free agent Corn Elder and 3rd or 4th year cornerback Mike Ford. Now, Mike Ford has not played a lot in his NFL career so far. He's played a lot as a backup, played a lot as a role player, but has not really stepped into major starting roles as of recently. Last year for the Detroit Lions, Mike Ford only had 12 tackles and 1 passes defended. However, he did only play in 58 snaps. Now, in those 58 snaps, Mike Ford only gave up 38 receiving yards on 6 targets and allowed 0 touchdowns. 2 of those pass defended, 2 of those pass deflections did come on Devontae Adams in the red zone. So, I mean, in his short playing time, in his 58 snaps a season ago, he did play really well, wasn't really tested a lot, wasn't really picked on as a backup, and as I said, did have a pass defended and did only allow 38 yards on 6 targets. So he did play pretty well for the time that he was in. However, Corn Elder played a much more expansive role on the Carolina Panthers defense a year ago than Mike Ford did for Detroit. Corn Elder played in 411 snaps for the Panthers defense, totaling 40 tackles, 3 passes defended, and a forced fumble. Now, Corn Elder also has a couple preseason INTs that look pretty impressive, of course, against backups or against guys that aren't necessarily the top wide receivers or quarterbacks of the NFL, but nonetheless, he has made a couple turnovers, had forced a couple turnovers in the preseason that look very solid and indicate that he can do it in the NFL and can do it for an NFL team in the regular season. Now, with that being said, as of right now, from all the news that I've heard coming out of minicamp and training camp, right now it seems as though Mike Ford is the frontrunner for this nickel DB spot. It seems like he's making more plays. I believe he had an interception in training camp the other day. He's been playing very well. He's been playing lockdown, has not been losing a lot of reps in one-on-one, and although Corn Elder is also playing very well, he's playing very solid and is making a case to get playing time at that nickel spot. It seems as though Mike Ford every day is taking one step farther away and really not running away with the race as of right now, not running away with the the competition. But as of right now, Mike Ford is the pretty certain, he is a pretty clear front runner for the nickel, or the starting nickel cornerback as of right now. Now, a couple other lesser, I guess, not lesser important, but I think battles that are still important, but not necessarily ones that you need to keep an eye on every single day. One of them is that last guard position. As of right now, Big V is the projected starter for that. However, I think the athletic potential, I think the potential in general for Logan Stenberg could force Vaitai into more of a backup role than anything else. You have the cornerback 2 spot. Jeff Okuda has really locked down that cornerback 1 throughout training camps and OTAs. However, Amani Oruwari and Quentin Dunbar are both battling it out for that second starting cornerback position. Both of them have been making plays, and both of them are making a case to get that second boundary cornerback position. And then I think the tight end depth is also something to watch. We talked about Darren Fells yesterday. Darren Fells, a 6'7", 270-pound red zone elite weapon that Jared Goff is going to love using in the red zone. I think he's going to be our second tight end, but Elise Mack has been making a lot of plays. Tremaine Brock has been making a lot of plays. You have Wright, and of course you have Hunter Bryant with his athletic upside. There's a lot of really good tight ends in this building, and not all of them are going to make the team. I think the tight end room is going to be something really big and important to watch in the preseason throughout training camp, right? You have Darren Fells, who's a big red zone weapon. Obviously, Hawkinson will be the starter. Elise Mack has been making a ton of plays. We know how good and explosive Austin Bryant can be. You have Brock, the tight end out of Notre Dame, who is one of the best blockers and arguably the second best blocker on the team right now. And you have a couple other guys sprinkled in here and there throughout the Lions organization. So, with that being said, those are really the big positional battles that I believe need to be watched as training camp continues. As we get through the preseason, as we get to see more of these players, and as we kind of get to see this team come together, watch for these battles. Watch for the starting safety position. Watch how rotation works with the wide receivers. Watch who's starting. Watch what roles each player has, and watch who gets a majority of the playing time and a majority of the targets. Watch the nickel defensive back role. Watch the second cornerback role. Watch really a majority of our secondary, to be totally honest. But in general, those are really the big positional battles that need an eye kept on them. Those are really the big positional battles that need to be watched as of right now. And those are some of the big ones that I will be keeping on and updating as we get closer to the regular season. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, of course, go Lions!